Good morning. A couple of things have been bothering me. One was the name Eddie Money. Oh, that was stuck in my head. The real name of the fellow was John Money. A psychologist named John Money ran some experiments. It was out of Johns Hopkins University, by the way. Why is it so much crap comes out of Johns Hopkins? I had a neighbor. My parents revered this child next door. He was much better than I was. He did all kinds of stuff. Eagle Boy Scout, going to medical school, going to Johns Hopkins, and all that. I mean, they let me know how much better he was and how much more they appreciated the neighbor boy than me. And it actually motivated me. It did not motivate me. My parents were pretty ignorant about how to handle things. To be honest with you, they just didn't know. John Money was a psychologist, and I haven't done much research on this. I just don't want to, because to me it's an open and shut case. The man was a bit insane. Yes, a bit insane for a psychologist. And his great experiments, the two that I recall, ended up in suicides. And what had happened is that one boy at 8 years of age had his penis cut off by accident during surgery. And so they transgendered this child to female. And he died from his own hands at about age 20, 21, 22, as I recall. This young man, raised as a woman, hated himself and his life, and he killed himself. He committed suicide. And then the other grand experiment he had, there were a couple of boys. As I recall, there was a set of twins, and one of them, the physicians botched a circumcision operation, mutilated his penis. So Dr. Money talked the parents into raising one as a girl, one as a boy. Again, this young man, this young woman, whatever you want to call him, commits suicide when he gets of age, hates his life, hates himself so much that he kills himself. And Eddie Money was a sexual deviant. He was a perverted fellow. And he pulled this on the country, and all you have to do is Google it. And there's another jackass out there who he was associated with that also was a sexual deviant that did experiments with children. I'm sorry, but you've got sick adults who have credentials, who do perverted, who do horrible stuff to these children, and that screws the children up for life, and they kill themselves. So that's what you're looking at when you listen to these gender-affirming treatments. Gender affirming my ass. Children pretend they're all kinds of stuff. They role play. They're discovering life. They're discovering themselves. And they need a safe place to do that. They certainly don't need the confusion that we adults bring upon them with our perversions. I look at those videos of those transgendered, those perverted men that are basically naked, dancing for these children, and I'm looking at them doing it in front of kindergarten children, and the teachers are cheering on their stripper moves and things like that. Their teachers are doing that, and as a result, the children do it. So is that proper? Is that what you want in your public schools? Do you want a lot of suicides? Because I'm going to tell you right now, you're going to get a bunch of suicides when these kids become teenagers. The suicide rate is going to go up significantly. You want that on your conscience? Do you have a conscience? Do you care at all? And I'm going to tell you that the next bump up is going to be the early 20s. So you're going to see a whole bunch of suicides 13, 14, 15 years old. Yeah, and you're going to have to wait to see that happen. I'm just telling you about it now. And then another 7 years beyond that, age 21, 22, 23, you're going to have a lot more suicides. All because of some stupid idea that you let be espoused by a foreign power, by the way, taking over the country, taking down the country. Who's that foreign power? It's the Khazarian Mafia and the CCP working together. Not only that, there's a few other groups working there. There's the Edomites, the descendants of Esau, that ancient hatred. That's what's being played out here. I listened a little bit to Cliff High. I think he's worth listening to. Sometimes it takes him a little while to get warmed up, but as he's covering it, and he invents words and terms and throws things off a little bit. I think he's about the same age I am, and like I said, Eddie money, that was a confusion on my part. It was John money. I mean, he actually makes little slight errors like that. So he invents his own language at times. But he's got something to offer. I recommend you listen to him. It might help you to edify yourself against this crappy stuff that's going on. This critical race theory needs to be made illegal as fast as possible. Not tolerated one iota. Anybody who espouses critical race theory wants to take the country apart. It should be regarded as a mental illness. It is mental illness. And anyone who advocates transgender exposition or this display of perversion for children under the guise of education and gender affirmation, they too need to be taken out. They are ill, they are sick, they should not be allowed around the children at all. They should be charged with child sexual exploitation. They are criminals. Their acts are criminals. What they espouse is criminal. I watched that transgender woman before the Senate. Why is she even testifying? There's no reason to listen to that insanity. There is no reason to entertain it whatsoever. And she's going to tell you she's offended because you ask her whether or not she has a penis. And she's up there for the world to see as a transgendered icon, as a hero or heroine or whatever it is. Look, folks, there's an old word for these things. Yeah, this is not anything new. It's called a eunuch. They're eunuchs. You might as well call them what they really are. They're eunuchs. They're not transgendered. You can't change your gender. Certainly you can assume the role. Certainly you can adopt a sexually deviant lifestyle. But you cannot change your gender. It's a big lie. You're stuck with what you're born with. And not all of us are happy with all of our characteristics. We do compare ourselves against one another. And there was a psychologist, and I can't remember her name, and my mentor, boy, this was a long time ago, he told me he met this famous psychologist. I guess I could figure out who she is right now. So I will Google the name. This is how So Eddie, Dr. Money and the twins, David Reamer and John Money, Alfred Kinsley, not Howard Hughes, Hugh Hefner. They're all perverts and deviants. Two of Hugh Hefner's girlfriends walked in on him having sex with their dogs. And then he had sex with men but didn't love them, so he wasn't gay. And in case you're wondering, he was quick like a bunny rabbit, and those girls sort of complained about it because he was so fast, and it was such an unsatisfying experience for them. But the thing is, he lined up one after the other, and they were all disgusted with what they were doing. But they wanted that lifestyle and the money he was lavishing upon them, the cars he would get them, and the glamour that always gets a woman. Women feed on attention. So what did I say I was going to look up? I'm going to look up androgyny and see if I can bring this to your attention. Androgyny. Hopefully this comes up and jars my memory. Androgyny is a possession of both masculine and feminine characteristics. Okay, we all have that. That's natural. There's only a few of us who are perfect specimens. We have things that are different about us. In my case, I've got small hands, small feet. I should have been a surgeon. But so what? I mean, this is what I was born with. This is what I was given. I can't change it. I wish I had made more of it. I mean, my hands are so small, I could have been a surgeon doing really delicate work a long time ago. And I'm trying to find the name of the female psychologist that was famous. She championed androgyny. And she was androgyny research. Forgive me for doing this right in front of you and not being prepared. Androgyny journals. I'm not going to go very far in this if it's not in the first paragraph. In this little, I'm just not going to do it. Psychological androgyny. Well, basically what had happened is this psychologist was made famous because her research, her initial research, supported the New World Order's narrative. That's a true narrative. And their idea was to confuse us all and to mix us up. That supports their androgynous Satanism. See, this is nothing new. This has been around for thousands of years. We've just allowed it to become dominant, to give it a voice and to give it a presence, which is our mistake. And of course, some of that is out of our curiosity, and other parts of it are that we're getting brainwashed. It's exactly what's going on. And so this famous female psychologist made a big name for herself. And the conclusion she came to was that the more androgynous a person was, the happier they were, the better adjusted they were. And this was when she began her research. I think she did a dissertation on it. And then she continued her research. And she discovered that the opposite was true, that the greater the sexual different characteristics of an individual, the happier they were. Now, you have to understand that's kind of a gross generalization, a gross conclusion. It's not down to what the individual is. So she discovered that she was wrong. She wanted to publish. Nobody would publish her. It didn't support the narrative. And because it refused to support the narrative, no one would listen to her anymore. And she was marginalized. And she complained at an APA convention to my mentor, Dr. Glade Birch, that she couldn't get her articles published anymore. So when people tell you that the literature is biased, it's heavily biased. When I was an undergraduate, teachers said it was 80% biased. In other words, political, not science. In other words, it was to support narratives, not science. It wasn't true research. The facts are simple. We have been brainwashed. We've allowed brainwashing to go on in our society, and the children are suffering for it. And you ain't seen nothing yet. I can guarantee bumps and suicidality down the road. As a matter of fact, the highest suicide group gets so much attention that you don't even know about the second highest suicidality in the United States of America. And I want to tell you this, I almost got a job based upon this. I was working in the Department of Corrections and I wanted a job elsewhere because I knew they didn't like me there. Really wasn't welcome there. I was doing my job properly and they were really a bunch of screw-ups there. They were busy ripping off the system. They were busy with their frauds on their hours, frauds on with the United States Congress on the student loan repayment program. Man, they were helping each other, stroking each other's backs, signing off on documents, illegal as hell. But the United States Congress didn't care because it was a bunch of Democrats. And they were all Democrats. They were of the same party, so they could get away with it. But not me. They found out that I was off work for 3 months or 6 months, whatever it was, that they put me aside, and then they had to extend my contract by that much time. But my supervisor, who didn't work with inmates, who didn't have client contact, they honored that. Gave it to her at the end of 2 years. Malfeasance in the Department of Corrections was horrible. And they still have millions of dollars a year that go off the books there and go into the hands of politicians like your governors. Yes, your governors have their hands deep in the till. You see, they don't pay very well at the Department of Corrections, so it's easy to bribe people. It's easy to get them to commit crimes, and they will excuse it because they're owed it, and they prepare for their retirements. You had one governor who raised $1 million to run against William Jefferson Clinton for the Democratic ticket for the presidency. He couldn't beat the $10 million that Jefferson Clinton got out of his dope dealing in Arkansas. So he lost. He became the Secretary of the Interior. Yeah, they haven't changed it. They do the same bullshit over there in the Department of Corrections in Arizona. They run a scam on the locks. That's why people get killed. That's why there's no security. Is they run a scam on the door locks. They sell them to the state. They buy them. They pay for them. And then they haul off the perfectly good locks to the dump. And then the state buys them back from them. They keep doing it to this day. Mr. Ryan knows about that. He's responsible for the deaths at Perryville. Ron Odom's untimely death, having a heart attack. And then that fellow out there, what was his name? Began with an L. Lumley. Officer Lumley, who got murdered. The locks were so bad on Perryville that the inmates could use string. And they used a piece of string to wire up, if you will, and defeat the mechanism so they could just pull on the string and step outside of their cages. It was that easy. And they still pull that bullshit. Yeah, I knew a guy named Mr. Smith whose job was to fix and service those locks. And he discovered a whole bunch of them inside the yard, covered up in a tarp. And he was told, leave that stuff alone. That's junk. It's going to the dump. And they paid a contractor to haul it off. Those were the brand new locks, all the parts he needed to do his job, maintaining security. So you need to understand, the state of Arizona is about the most corrupt state around. The only other states that are more corrupt are because they have more people, they have bigger budgets, they're larger. So theirs are much more intricate. But most of your states are corrupt as hell. So how can you even hold inmates, incarcerate men and women when you have this crime going on at this level in your institutions? And it starts at the level of your damn governors. Guarantee Ducey had his fingers in the cookie jar on that. Probably on the state retirement as well. And probably got kickbacks from the pharmaceutical companies. And according to the MyPillow guy, he was on the Chi-Com payroll. We got to push those injections on people. All right, I got to be careful what I say. That's far enough. So, you need to stop this mental illness. You need to stop entertaining it. These supposed experts aren't experts. There was a time a few years back, probably several decades ago now, in which a person who had some gender confusion did do sexual reassignment surgery. It was rare. And they were required to go through a bunch of counseling. And part of it was they hung out with other people who had gone through the operation to see whether or not it was for them. And the time was passed, and they actually had psychiatrists and psychologists working with them to give them a clearance. Now, that was questionable back then. But today, they're foisting it off. They want you to cut the penises off on your little boys. They want you to cut the breasts off on your little girls. Seriously. And this stuff is being funded behind your backs. Parents don't know what's going on with their children. That's how communist this is. Why is it that parents don't have total control over their children? Why do parents not have a full say-so on the education for their children? It's because the communists have taken the country down. They are in charge. They cannot be corrected. The only outcome, the only thing we can do on this education system is to pull the plug. As a matter of fact, we probably should make it a law that there will be no more state interference in education, no more state funding for education, no more state programs for any more education. Why? Because it's all handled in a political fashion to pervert, to maim, and it's going to cause tremendous amount of suicides. And I know they've got all that data there saying, well, you have to affirm the gender or they're going to kill themselves. Oh, I got news for you. The little girls we grew up with that played with us boys, that kicked our asses, that did everything that we did and did it better or worse or whatever you want to call it, a lot of them become incredibly well-adjusted, happy mothers who never would have thought they would have been so happy fulfilling their natural roles as mothers. And you would never guess by how feminine they are today that they were tomboys back then. Leave the children alone. Let's stop this scroll system, this educational system. Let's pull the plug on it. We don't need to be held hostage, especially in New Hampshire, where the taxes are so high so they can worship the educational system, that sacred cow. It's horrible how the people have been enslaved by that educational system. Why should you pay to educate another person's child? Why should you pay to have a communist indoctrination on the children? Why should you pay to have these children mutilated in a fashion that they grow up to hate themselves and they commit suicides at an ungodly rate? And I think I messed up on making the point, but your second highest group for suicides are college-age females. Why are co-eds, beautiful young women, beautiful youngsters with their entire lives ahead of them, why are they killing themselves? And they aren't just doing polite little overdoses. A lot of them are using guns. A lot of them are hanging themselves. And that's a pretty serious kind of a suicide. I'd say that's very determined. And a lot of these young people set up suicide by cop or auto accident. They're dangerous to other people. I feel for the police that have to respond to calls when a person that's out there wants the police to kill them. They want to die so badly they're going to set up this confrontation in which the police will be forced to kill them. That happens. And then you've got other people out there that are really so selfish that they don't think about the other person. And so they will put their car on the other side of the road on purpose to do a head-on-head collision with somebody because they want to kill themselves. That's a crime. It's not that suicide's a crime. It's that your disregard for the life of anybody else is the crime. I think I've ranted a little bit too much. But basically, I'm going to title this Suicidality, and I don't know what else to call it. Do I call it transgenderism? Because it's not transgenderism. Do I call it sexual deviancy? I'm sorry, but even those with functional sexual deviant lifestyles, they aren't out there doing disastrous stuff. Not all of them. There's more freedom in Russia today than there is in the United States of America. The people over there have a lot more health and a lot more freedom. They've got a lot more privacy. Over here, you got everybody in your face demanding to know, what's your sexual identity? What's your sex life about? And you have these fools that parade themselves out there. Pride. The pride of Satan? What pride? And you have grown adults, having sex in these parades in front of children. They should both be put to death on the spot. That's the way it was in the old days. Long time ago. I don't think they should be allowed to do that stuff. I think when you have two men copulating in a parade protected under the gay pride stuff, I think the whole parade needs to be ruled illegal and every participant needs to be charged with crimes. Yes, if you're going to participate in a parade and you're going to protect these perverts who are putting on public displays, I don't care if you want to call it affection. Some of that stuff's not very affectionate. Some of it's pretty violent. I don't care what you want to call it. Public displays of sexuality like that in front of children, it's an abomination. And the gays will run around saying, well, you heterosexuals can't be holding hands and can't be kissing each other in public because that's public displays of affection. I remember the days when we thought it was quaint and they were just unusual and we needed to protect them because they were getting beat up. And now they dominate our society and they testify before the Congress as if they are experts? There's no expertise there. It's madness, it's insanity, it's mental illness. So we need to stop this mental illness before it kills more of our children. And you're going to see the fallout from this for decades. And you're going to wish you had spoken up, but you didn't. You're going to wish you could have, but you can't because you're silenced by the thought police, by the politicians and their goons. You need to fire these teachers that support this stuff. The teachers that expose children to this, the teachers that cheer this shit on, they need to be fired. Not only that, they need to be charged with their crimes, made felons, never allowed to ever be around a child again. Yes, that includes the women. It's mostly women who are supporting this stuff. And look at the number of adult women having sex with their minor children, boys and girls. They can't control themselves. You know, we thought it was kind of bad when men were cavorting about doing their stuff. But the thing is that when women do it, it really becomes unbridled rather quickly and goes off deeper ends than what the men ever do. Let's wake up. Let's smell the coffee. Let's accept the reality. We have perverts at the helm, perverting the others, which is going to lead to a lot of death ultimately. Then you have a lot of problems because of the sexually transmitted diseases. We have got ourselves in a pickle here. It's a mess. Oh, don't support the androgyny. Don't support the mental illness. Don't entertain it at all. And those people that walk around boasting about it, regard them for the mental illness they suffer from. And they should be sent off by themselves even. Especially these adults in the school system, the principals, the educational boards, the school boards should be imprisoned for child sexual exploitation, for educational abuse, for child abuse. They need to be incarcerated. Some of them need to go to a mental asylum, I swear. So you need to recognize it for the sickness it is, and you have no idea. I don't even know where this leads to. This is uncharted territory. I do know this, that once female sexuality becomes unbridled, two things are true. And this is according to a publication in 1934 by a Dr. Unwin, U-N-W-I-N. It's on the open internet. You can download the 750, whatever it is, 700 odd page PDF file for it. And he had two conclusions. Number one, once female sexuality became unbridled, you couldn't put that genie back in the bottle. Number two, once that occurred, that civilization was doomed. It's in short order, it ceased to exist. The society was destroyed somehow through the mechanics of it. Somehow they disappeared from the face of the earth. And that's even true for the German Weimar Republic and the crappy stuff they practice in Berlin, which did get put back in the bottle for a short period of time. But ultimately it was a woman who destroyed the Germans. It was a female Italian communist who was married to a German general who was the quartermaster. She talked her husband into committing sabotage on the Eastern Front. And at the end of World War II, she and her husband retired to Moscow, where they were treated like royalty because his sabotage as a quartermaster destroyed the German effort on Moscow. That's how that's how the Germans were defeated. Look, Yahweh bless, may you bless Yahweh. May Yahweh make America good again. And that's the only way we're going to get our republic back is through Yahweh. We're not going to get it by these devils that have come over and occupied us, that live among us today, especially the devils that occupy Hollywood and the news media and our CIA and all of our intelligence apparatus that have been used against us to take this country down from within. Man, I wish I was president. But in a certain sense, I'm glad I'm not, because I'm afraid there'd be too much bloodshed. Because these perverts have to be dealt with. These sick people that are advocating for the slow road to death for our civilization, for the slow road to death for our children, they need to be stopped. Stop them.